Hey guys, Lancer here. Hope everyone's doing well. Thanks again for joining me while looking to some more MTG market movers for this week and figure out exactly what the dual lands are doing as far as some of the other more expensive reserve list cards. I'm going to try to be a bit more in-depth this time, quickly go over the vintage decks that are performing well, as that's something that I might not have kept an eye on. Specifically because I didn't really think that those kinds of decks would move very much. A lot of those guys have been collecting for many, many years, and I would have thought that the people that had it. The people that didn't, I guess, they can pay an arm and a leg to get into it, but I wouldn't think that that would cause too much market moving. But I guess now to think about it, a lot of collectors are just buying and keeping these cards, and the decks themselves may come into play, but maybe not too much. So let's start with the basics. What's moving today? What's been moving this week? So, of course, there are some Modern Horizon cards in here. The spoilers are pretty insane. I've looked at them. I probably should talk about them and see what the impacts are going to be for this and the D&D MTG set that's coming out. But let's start with Chatterfang. Great Squirrel Commander card. He's a really, really good legendary creature. I think he might actually be just a pretty good black-green commander. Because he allows you for 1 black mana to sacrifice squirrels, and as long as you're making tokens of any other kind, you make a squirrel token as well. And if you make... so if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus that many 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens are created as well. But the funny thing is, if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, and you create a squirrel token, wouldn't he then create a squirrel token as well? I'm pretty sure they worded this so that you can't make an infinite combo, but I'm pretty sure if you used a squirrel card, like a card that summons 4 squirrel tokens, then this guy should trigger as well and create another 4 squirrel tokens. Anyway, he just feels really, really powerful. And along with the other previous green squirrel commander, I think that a squirrel deck is actually coming up pretty well without needing the reserve list squirrel cards, because really they're actually not as good as some of these spoiled cards that have come out in this set. It's insane. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. And I know that there was a squirrel Secret Lair that came out, so we'll have to see what the impact is for that set and what new cards are coming from Modern Horizons, or what reprints are coming. There are a couple of reprints. So this guy is obviously totally busted because of the fact that he's got the old school border. Continuing on, Rich Hand, old school border, weird price manipulation. Hidden Paths from the Dark, really bad card, but it is on the reserve list, so it's $20. You're paying 6 green mana for all creatures gain Forest Walk, not just yours, so something to keep an eye out for. Acid Rain from Legends, 3 colorless, 1 blue for destroy all forests in play. Pretty powerful card, but it's actually kind of... like, if someone's playing a green deck, I guess they already have an advantage, so playing a card like this, it might just be, you deserve it, but destroying lands is always a bit of a weird one. It's on the reserve list, so it makes a bit of sense. Chromium, not on the reserve list. I'm pretty sure there's like a 5-cent version or 90-cent version of him. Not that impressive. Flying Carpet from Arabian Nights. Not on the reserve list, but I'm pretty sure it has... it's been printed. I was about to say it's never been printed, but it has been printed plenty of times, showing that reserve list cards have value, especially if they have unique art. Non-reserve list old cards have value, especially if they have unique art and people like them. Winter Blast from Legends. Not on the reserve list, $45. It has been printed many times. There is a 27-cent version of it. Caller of the Claw. Now this might be because of the green bear commander that was spoiled, but this is not exactly an expensive card to begin with, so it just bumped up a bit in the last couple of days. This one's pretty cool. Not on the reserve list. $10 on TCG. Never been reprinted. This could be high on the reprint list, but it's a pretty cool card. Whenever enchant creatures dealt damage, its controller puts that many 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens to play. Actually really cool. At some point, it used to be $1.65. So, that's smart. So it obviously got spiked the first time because of the Squirrel Secret Lair, and it's probably spiked again because some people had maybe knowledge of more squirrel cards coming out. This is unusual, but it's probably just a bit of market moving. It did drop quite a bit. It's the full land text. And Upheaval, return all permanents to their owner's hand. Now, this is weird because there's a card coming out. Sorry, is this the same one? No, so this is from Odyssey. Yeah, so Modern Horizons 2 has a reprint of this card. So why is the older version of it moving up so much? Strange. It is getting a new reprint, so I can't really explain why the better quality versions of these are going up by so much. Maybe Odyssey is a new flavor of the town, but we'll have to see. Moving into Standard. I'm only going to look at the big market movers for this week. So, I really don't want to stick around for things like Expressive Iteration, which is a uncommon. It moved up by 65% this week, but the fact is, this set is still being released, and the price will come down, especially for an uncommon. This, on the other hand, Stormwing Entity, 3 colorless, 2 blue for an elemental. I think the reason why this is good is because of the spell reduction cost. You can make this spell almost, 2 mana? You reduce it by 3 if you cast an instant or sorcery. So you lightning bolt something, play this for 2, and then you got a 2/2 flying, and when it enters the battlefield, scry 2. Yeah, pretty good card. So, pretty powerful. I don't have any copies of it, I don't think, but it makes sense to see why it's in there. The double-sided lands are obviously getting a bit of a bump. Of course, Toski, Bearer of Secrets, I forgot his name, but that's Toski. He is going to probably keep climbing. The Toski probably is going to jump by a bit more before flatlining, because he is probably one of the best squirrels to add to a squirrel commander deck. You're going to be pushing it. It's not going to be the best deck. You can probably make it a decent deck, but it's not going to be the best deck. But it's certainly going to be a fun one, and I can think of it as being pretty cool. Toski moved up by 4% just today, so Trulane is still moving around. Korvold, very powerful card, is still moving around. Other than that, Veto, Thorn of the Dust Rose, has dropped by 10%, and I am surprised. Tyver Kell, the elf, has dropped down by another 9%. So now he's pretty much just $7, which I think for what he does is actually really good. But in an elf deck, I guess the thing is, elves don't need more than what they already have to absolutely destroy someone on turn 3. I've seen it done, and you don't even have to have good elves. So something like Tyver just is an extra bit of icing on the cake that you probably don't even need. So that's probably the reason why he's not doing too well, is because there's so many other cards that elves can use that are just as competitive. Next on the list is Modern. So the biggest movers for this is actually going to be a lot of stuff, because I've noticed that Modern Horizons 2 is pushing a lot of things I did not expect it to do, including clue tokens, food tokens, and treasure tokens have been being pushed all day long. I never would have thought about food tokens being pushed. And clue tokens, they were good when you didn't have anything, but now, everything can make clue, food, and treasure tokens. So it's actually quite an impressive combination. So artifacts are getting a big boost, and you can see that right here. Sanity Grind is a really powerful card. Reveal the top 10 cards of your library. For each blue mana in the symbol cost of the revealed cards, target opponent puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard, then puts the cards you reveal this way at the bottom of your library. This card is really good because there is a lot of showings of milling in pretty much the Wizards of the Coast is trying to make mill a thing. So, and they probably will. at some point. The only problem is this says target opponent, which I don't like. Arcbound Ravager, so many artifacts to destroy, to sacrifice. Perfect. It's got modular, which is obviously a thing that's coming back in Modern Horizons 2, this one. So modular has always been terrible, but I guess Arcbound might have been one of the better modular cards to begin with. Cryptic Command is a bit of a weird one. I thought that was getting reprinted in this. Let's have a look at the weekly changes. So Snapcaster Mage slowly moving up. Arcbound Ravager, 29%. Actually, I paid a lot of money for this card. But at the same time, yeah, like 29% in 1 day. 1 week is pretty impressive. 8% jump for Emrakul. Reflecting Pool, yeah, that's good. Surgical Extraction, pretty much needed for modern decks. Crux Thumb, that's pretty much a commander card. I think there's a few different ways to re-flip a coin or flip multiple coins. Pretty good for this. And Cavernous Soul is moving up. On the downward slope, there is some big drops for my Savra, Queen of the Golgari. Sad, sad days. I probably should have got rid of all my Savras 2 weeks ago, but I like my Savras, and I did not pay even $12 for them, so they will continue to drop until they probably hit like an equilibrium of around about $5, unless they get reprinted. I thought they were a bit cheap to begin with when they were just sitting around about 50 cents. And Creekwood Liege obviously dropping by 24% as well to $19. A bit slower. Save at the moment, not something I've actually kept an eye on, but take an extra turn after this one. Skip the untap step of that turn. Pretty cool card, I guess, if you want to catch up on certain things. Next is Pioneer. So Pioneer has some pretty cool movements as well. Pitiless Plunderer. Now, oh boy, this card I was holding out to jump in for ages. I jumped in when this card was a couple of dollars, and that felt bad to me. In fact, I didn't even get it I got it for $3, and it was in Portuguese, so it wasn't even in English. I'm pretty sure that probably is now doubled in price. But this card needs a reprint. I got 2 of him. It's in Portuguese or whatever other language, sadly, but I know I got a little text box for him to fix it. But I couldn't find. It wasn't that I was too cheap to buy an English copy. I couldn't find an English copy to buy, and I really wanted him at that point. So now he sounds like he's even going to be harder, because now he's moved up by 30% to almost $10. And it's a really good card. He is a really good card. And now that whenever you make a treasure token, you have a chance to make a clue token and a food token with all these other cards and this synergy that Modern Horizons 2 is coming out. It's pretty much a 2-turn, probably you win kind of a card at this point. 2 turns, you sacrifice a creature, you make so much more value that you can just reuse that. And I don't know really how you're going to stop someone from abusing it in so many different angles. Urborg is moving up. I think there's a green Urborg that I've seen somewhere. I don't know if that's fake or not. There have been some fake cards, images moving around. I haven't really kept an eye on that one, so I wouldn't know. Atvara Helkide, so that's just a dragon. So once again, you can clearly see that the movements up are way higher than the movements down. The highest drop is by 10% for a sliver. The rest of them are not even enough to talk about. It's probably just averaging out to a decent. Teferi is dropping, but his spike up after the secret lair was always a weird one. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. And last one before we look into some of the decks that are actually performing. For Legacy. Now, I was hoping that there would be some changes in the last couple of days, and what I'll do is I'll just bring up a chart of what I was thinking is going to have the biggest impact on the MTG marketplace in the last couple of weeks and the next couple of weeks. So currently, the status quo is nothing's really changed. People are still moving away from currencies into hard collectibles and assets. That's the money idea thinking behind it. But that can't stay forever, because at some point, that's the collapse of the system. So we'll have to find out exactly what's going on. So the movements in here, like Volcanic Island, for Unlimited or Underground Sea, and obviously they reflect equivalent to the revised edition, is just ups and downs. Like they've pretty much been slowly climbing up for the last couple of months. And I don't see that changing yet. And I'll show you why. Though it can't stay like this forever. At some point it has to flatline. Otherwise, people might start taking bigger and bigger bets, and then things might get even more jumpy. So what I did was I wanted to find out what kind of legacy decks are performing well, and find out if there's any similarities for the more expensive cards. Now, the funny thing is, a lot of these kinds of cards, even though it's legacy, they're just not moving by enough. But I did. Oh boy. So I checked out a bug deck from Vintage. And, man, you can throw around a Black Lotus, you can throw around a Mox Emerald, a Mox Jet, Mox Sapphire for $12,000 US, probably. And yeah, when these kinds of decks perform, and this is probably one of the more popular decks right now, it does move certain cards around. And I could easily trace some of these cards to some of the movements for the day. But it just seems so crazy that they move up by that percentage. But you get a Tabernacle, and you're like, okay, fine. Well, there's no Tabernacle. Okay, so there's 2 Tabernacles on the sideboard. But none in the main board. And then you got another deck, and this has got all of the Moxes. That's fine. Black Lotus, obviously. Mishra's Workshops. Nothing too crazy. Moxes. The Moxes aren't moving either, so that they're pretty much flatlined and disappeared off this. But I guess it does track percentages, so percentiles. That's duplicated, so this deck probably shouldn't be $180,000. But it's insane, really. Yeah, it shouldn't be 100. It should be $200,000, so it should be $100,000. But that's a crazy deck, and yeah, I've just tried to figure out exactly what's going on with the Legacy and Vintage marketplace. I will be honest, in my mind, I can't even think about getting into a game state like this, so it doesn't really matter to me what the cost of the cards are. If they're above a certain amount, I can't put any money into it. So in my mind, I might be thinking small scale. But obviously, if something is popular in a Vintage table, there might be people that are willing to change to it. It's just not as easy as even Modern, and Modern was expensive back then. So it's just a tricky time to figure out exactly why these cards are moving. Alright, so let us go on to the next part, which was a comparison of what's happening with the dual lands. And I'll just do a quick check in my mind to see if there has been any big changes. But I have looked at this earlier today. It's steadily moving up. But it has to stay consistent at some point, where once it meets the secondary market's price for the best quality, the market becomes saturated with cards, and the prices it has to either be bought up because everyone thinks that's the flat line, or it has to give some back, because otherwise it's just gonna keep moving up. Like, it's hard to explain exactly what my thinking is, and I'm not trying to, like, for the sake of the cards having to drop. I mean, I would prefer to buy them when they're a bit cheaper. It's really hard for me to convince myself to buy these cards when they're pretty much at their peak. And I know that I was talking about this probably... When did I start making my videos? I think it was either March? Early March? Oh, really? Only that long ago? No, maybe even February. I forgot exactly when I started making the videos, but in my mind, I just feel like there hasn't been enough time for the market to truly adjust to this part right here. This flat line that gives me confidence. It's about to do it, In the next couple of days, it's going to flatline, or next couple of weeks, it's going to have a flatline. But I would prefer to buy something when it's flatlined, especially if it costs a couple of $100, because I just don't want to. I don't think I need to take the chance. I can wait until the prices have stabilized, and then I can decide on if it was worth it or not. So, oh, okay. All good. So I've gone through a few of these. They're all spiking. They're all moving up. I will say every now and then you get a really decent price, but it doesn't have to mean that it's like a heavily played for $240. I want to have a picture of that. $267. That's still like $80 more expensive than it was like a couple of months ago, but $280 for probably a heavily played. Another thing you can tell is it still has 2 pages. You count them all up. You got 5 here. You got come on. Australian internet, it's amazing. It's amazing. So 5 there, 6, so 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 22, 25. So, okay, that's not an amazing amount, but that's still way better than it was a couple of months ago, where you could not find any. You'd find one for $1,200. Or one for, there you go, one for $1,500 moderately played. Come on. So, in my mind, there's more of them available. Whether or not that makes any difference, you're going to have to tell in the long run. But I just feel like there's more quantity out there. So if you're willing to really get people that won't just sell, then you might be able to get better and better and lower prices. So try that first before you start buying from TCG. Because no doubt TCG entered the market at a higher price, so they're not going to try to exit until they can sell at some of these higher prices. Alright, cool. So the last thing I wanted to bring was the fun. Come on. The fun part. Alright, so I said last week that if the dollar closed above 90, then the market, as far as collectibles, should start probably being a bit hesitant about climbing up. And especially when the dollar starts going up to 91, there might be a bit of a shakeout of crypto and other things. Because the aim is for the dollar, as the dollar gets lower, other assets go up in price. But if the dollar increases in value, then other assets would be sold off to get more dollars, because as the dollar moves up, things should become cheaper, or like you need less dollars because the dollar value goes up. So it's hard to explain, but my idea is the dollar's been pretty weak from the 1st of April. So pretty much, 31st of March. From the 31st of March, or 30th of March, the dollar's been really bad, and that's almost 2 months now. So March, April, May. So 2 months of just really bad dollar breakdown. The dollar's just been completely smashed. Like, this is a huge percentage loss if you really think about it in the terms of like a currency losing value. 4.2%. So after 25th of May, the dollar's tried to make a rebound. And it's showing a lot of weakness, but it's moving up pretty randomly. Every now and then, like you had some huge moves ups and downs. So in my mind, if the dollar starts climbing back up and actually holds some strength above the 200, then there's no reason why people wouldn't try to get more dollars so that they can buy things for cheaper later in the year. So, it's the people that wait for the interest rates to rise so that they can buy a house for cheaper because people can't pay that much rent back for the interest. So I'm going to leave the video there, but what I want to do is I want to just let you know that if the dollar keeps increasing in value, as it is, and a lot of people think that the dollar is dead, usually it tries to do the exact opposite. I'm expecting the value of the cards to stabilize and maybe even go down a bit as the dollar gets in value. These things happen in cycles, which means in the long term, the dollar is doing really bad. It's broken out of a huge up trend line that it's been holding for since May 2011. So from 2011, it's been on this up trend line, and it's broken out of it. But it has never retested the trend line to try to either get back onto it or to bounce off it and then go back down. So it kind of still has to do that truthfully. Otherwise, this is just a really bad shakeout. I guess maybe not always, but it's sometimes a good idea for it to come back and test some of these things. So when that happens, that test is usually a good way to know that you're going to get something at a discount before it starts dropping back down. Also, it goes above this red line. Anyways, guys, that's all going to be really confusing, but let's see what happens in the next couple of weeks. Thanks again for joining me, and have a good one. See ya.